Hi everybody, Carol Garrison with Carol's Creative Escape. It is time for another Make It Monday. I am so grateful everybody's decided to join me tonight or to catch this on replay. I really do appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to watch my videos. I am an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from White Bear Lake, Minnesota. I have been working with Stampin' Up! Products for a little over 10 years now and have been making cards for 30 some years. Different variations, but the longest run has been with stamps and ink and paper. Again, I'm very, very happy to have you here, and my goal is to simply spread joy one card at a time, and that may be because I've given a card to somebody, maybe somebody's bought a card to share with somebody else, or maybe I've helped somebody find their creative side through making a card. It doesn't matter how. I just want to be able, like I said, to spread joy one card at a time. I hope everybody's had a great week. We had a good weekend here at our house. A busy work week, but a good weekend. Found out that my second grandchild, who's going to be due in July, is going to be a little boy. So we're excited for that little addition. And they had lots of hand-me-downs for the first one. She's a little girl. They had friends that had girl clothes, but they don't have a lot of little boy clothes, so I get to finally go shopping for clothing. I can't wait. Hey, Jody, thanks for joining in. So anyhow, besides that, we just got the usual stuff done around the house, cleaning and all that kind of stuff. And the other good thing that happened is we've had a dog that has kind of been misbehaving a little bit and not feeling well, and we got pretty much a clean bill of health for him. So that was a real day brightener last week when we got the word on that. So let me go ahead, without further ado, I'm just going to flip my camera over. Apologize for the mess you're going to see ahead of time, but we'll get things set up here and be able to start watching. We'll see how many times I have to move my camera around to get it to... Hey, that's not too bad. We're going to leave it. We're going to leave it. I'll get that out of the way and start shining some light down here as I get the camera moved out of the way. And I actually am showing up where I expect to be on Facebook, so that's a good news. One of the things that I am working on are stamp sets or papers or things, kind of focusing my cards right now on things that are going to be retiring in the very near future, pretty much at the end of April. And right now there's some great buys in the store, online store. There's going to be a big product refresh tomorrow, so you may find some new things there that you haven't seen in previous trips to the store. Hi April, thanks for joining in. And so today's card is featuring actually some embellishments that are retiring, some designer series paper that's retiring. It does also include a stamp set and dies, but those fortunately are not retiring. So the bundle will be, but the stamps themselves are not retiring. And then it's a new fold for me, and this is kind of what the base of it looks like. And I've seen this card, but again, have never tried to make it. So I do like to make samples when I'm doing fun folds, at the very least, so I know what the folds and the measurements are. So that's what this piece of paper is here for me. And a couple samples of the card. This is just a cute little birthday card. Again, I've cut some of the figures out from the zoo paper. I never bought the stamps, but I've been able to use a lot of this paper just by cutting the figures out. And then we've got that happy birthday, and on the next flap I've got a couple of the characters just dancing their way through. And at the end, another dancing animal with the word friends stamped on the paper. And then on the back I've just added one more little cutout here, and then a place for me to write notes to whoever's going to get this card. Initially I started making this card using this beautiful designer series paper, Irresistibly Yours, I think it's called. And I discovered that this paper is no longer available. So this is just a sample card, but understand that this particular paper is not available any longer. And so again, I've just got you, thank you for your friendship, and you open up the next flap, here for you always. And that last flap, I know you will get through this. And again, I'm going to write my note on the back of the card because I really just wanted the paper and the stamp and inks to show through. So today we are going to be featuring Copper Clay and Boho Blue. Neither of these are colors I've used a lot of. I'm using the Cheerful Daisy stamp set and coordinating dies. These will be in the catalog again. I need to move my camera stand down because I feel like I'm missing part of where I should be. Okay. So these two items I'm using, and I really just used this stamp and then the dies that cut these two flowers out. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then I'm pulling my sentiment. I'm using this Hello, which is out of the Layering Leaves stamp. And actually, now that I think about it, I'm going to grab one more stamp that I'm going to use as a little bit of a background. So let's clear out the area. And I want to show you how to cut this piece. So first you're going to start with a piece of cardstock that measures 4 1/4 by 9 1/2. And you will be scoring this. It's pretty easy to remember. You will be scoring it at, so you'd be putting it through and starting to score 5 1/2, 6 1/2, 7 1/2, and 8 1/2. So you're basically ending up with 4 1-inch strips. And of course, this brings us to the fold that we're going to make on our card as well. And then the piece that I haven't done yet, because I thought it might be easier to show you, is after we've created our score lines. So we've gone, what did I say we were going to do? 5 1/2. I'll open this up so you can kind of see. 5 1/2. We scored it 6 1/2, 7 1/2, and 8 1/2. Then we are going to rotate it, and we're going to come back and score at 3/4 of an inch. Now, the piece you need to remember with this particular scoring is we're going to only score up to the 3 at the end of the third 1-inch column. We don't want to go all the way over to that last score line. Just 1, 2, 3 score lines at 3/4 of an inch. And so I'm just going to carefully do that and watch my measurement. And then we're going to slide this up to 1 1/2 inches. And we're only going to score up to this first line at 1 1/2 inches. Okay, so now we've got our 4 1-inch lines. We've got one line going in at 1 1/2. My lighting is really bad tonight. 1 1/2, and then we've got a line in at 3/4 of an inch up to that third mark. Okay, I will try to create a diagram that will better show what I'm talking about here. And then you're going to want to get your paper snips or another pair of very sharp scissors. And what you're going to do is cut just to the left of your score line, and that's just because we don't want it showing through. And you'll cut right up to that 1-inch score line. Okay, so I've just made this cut right here. And then next, I'm going to cut from here up to that diagonal. Okay, so I'm just going to get it in, and I really try to line up my scissors blade so it's pretty much pointing right at that diagonal line. And then I start to snip, and again, we're just going to that diagonal. And then we'll cut this next section just to the left of the score line, just so that we don't have it sitting on our finished card. And we'll cut up to that score line. Okay, like that. Don't worry if you got a little snag like I do, we'll get that fixed. And then this last cut will cut from right here up to the corner of the card. And that'll kind of give us the second pleat of this card. So again, I want to just get my scissors in there and pretty much be pointed right at that top of that score line. And then I just want to clean this, trim this piece up just a little bit. So I've got a straight edge that we're dealing with. Okay, so then we've got a piece that looks just like this. So again, it's 4 1/4 by 9 1/2, and we've scored it at 5 1/2, 6 1/2, 7 1/2, 8 1/2, rotated, scored at 3/4 up to that third score line, and then scored it at 1 1/2 up to that first score line, and then we've just trimmed it out as a staircase. And this is still a little bit crooked. Oh, and we got Zelda here again tonight. She seems to be making some weekly appearances into the videos. You know what, Zelda? You need to get down though. They don't need to see your back. Okay. And then for the rest of the card, we need a piece of 4 by 5 1/4 basic white, because this is what I'm going to put on the back of my card. And then I have a piece of the copper clay, and it measures, I want to make sure I'm giving it to you right here, 3 1/2 by 4 3/4. And that is going to be decorated. Well, I'm just going to give you cardstock first. And then you'll have another piece of cardstock that measures 3 1/2 by 4 3/4. So this piece measures 3 1/2 by 4 3/4, and this piece measures 2 3/4 by 4. I think I just gave that to you wrong previously. So I'm going to repeat it one more time. 3 1/2 by 4 3/4, and this piece is 2 3/4 by 4. And then I've taken some of this beautiful, beautiful Fresh as a Daisy Designer Series paper that will be retiring. And I've cut a piece that measures 4 by 5 1/4. And then I have 2 different pieces that measures 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. Now this is an extra piece that I did not have in the first 2 cards that I showed you. But I'll kind of share with you why I did it this way. And then again, I've got 2 more pieces of Designer Series paper that measure 2 1/2 by 3 3/4. And again, I'll show you, I did not have the second piece of Designer Series paper, but I am decorating this card just a little bit differently, and that's why I've got that. So these solid blue pieces that I'm sharing with you, those are optional pieces and not necessarily, and make sure I grab the right one, a part of the card. Okay. All right. So then, the next thing that we need to, you know, I'm looking at this piece. No, it'll be fine. I'm not going to worry about it. My grain is going to run the opposite. We're not worrying about it. The other thing that I did with this card is I took just 2 pieces of basic white cardstock, and this is where I stamped these 2. I actually stamped them with Versa ink on the white cardstock, and then used the white embossing powder. I wanted the detail, but I don't want a lot more showing up on that. And so that is how I got that. So first I stamped them with Versamark. I colored them with the white embossing powder, and then I die cut them out using the coordinating dies. So the last thing that I need to do to finish these 2 up is to stamp the center of the flower with these little stamps. We're going to see how that goes. This one doesn't have a lot of space for me to be stamping in, but we're going to make it work. So we've got our copper clay, which is the coordinating color. Because these are photopolymer stamps, I am going to grab my little mat here. I'm going to start with the bigger flower because I think that's going to be the easier one to stamp. I only got 1 shot to get this right, and it's going to be used whether it's how I want it or not. And I'm very fine with that. And I'm just using this color because I want it to kind of match the paper that we're using too. And then I'm going to take the little center and fill it in the little flower. Some of this may go on where I've embossed, and that's all right. So that decorates that. And then on the back of my card, I'm going to stamp the sentiment hello. And I'm actually going to use the boho blue just to add a little color to the back of the card as well. So we'll ink that up. And I'm just going to put it, I think, in the corner like this. And then the stamp that I grabbed right at the last minute is actually the texture stamp that comes in, oh dear, I just stuck my finger in my ink, is the textured stamp that comes in with the layering leaves, which is where that hello sentiment comes from. And so I'm just going to add a little background to this, but I don't want it to be as strong a color. So I'm just getting an idea of how many times I need to stamp it off to be able to still see it, but not have a lot of color. And I think I wanted to go a little more than that. And like I said, I'm just trying to add a little texture to the where I've got the sentiment. And that works for me. It doesn't have to be a lot. In fact, as I'm looking at the camera, I realize that you can't really see a lot of what I did. So let me hold it up a little bit, and then I think you'll be able to see it. Just to add a little bit, make that hello stand out. That's all I'm doing. All right, let's get rid of all of our stamping stuff and hop right into how do we make this card, Carol? So the first thing that we're going to do is take this part and fold it. So we're going to fold along that furthest in score line, because that gives us pretty much the 5.5 inch card. And then we are going to fold back this way. And I kind of found it easy to make sure I just burnished one of these folds at a time. And then we're going to come back and, just like an accordion, fold that. And then we're going to fold this flat back. And again, I find it easier when I'm doing my initial burnishing of creases to make sure that I'm doing each one alone. And then I kind of come back with them stacked up and just do one more. So now what I've got is something that looks like this. All right, we're going to flip over to the back, and we will just go ahead and adhere this to the back. Whoops. Make sure you put your sentiment on straight. And for those of you that maybe haven't seen me in a while or haven't filmed something, I have learned a trick from fellow stamper Jackie Bolheis that if you line up opposite corners and they're even, the other two corners will be by default. So you'll kind of see me doing that with my cards as I'm lining things up. And then we're going to come back and we're going to work on our layers. So this large piece, I just love this pretty paper, is going to go and just be our background on the card. So again, we're going to do a light touch with a check mark, and then you don't have to keep doing that to your hand to get the tape to run. And here we're just going to add this. And again, we want to center. And we'll do that. And then you can probably kind of start seeing how these pieces might come together. So this piece is going to get adhered here. But first, I found it easier. I've seen some videos where people put this on and then decorated it. I personally find it just a little bit easier to put my paper on first and then adhere the whole thing to the card. You can figure out what works best for you. And I apologize. I'm not quite sure why my lighting is so funky today. I don't know. I'm just looking up. Nothing has changed. It's a little cloudy outside. I don't know if that's having anything to do with it, but it just seems kind of dark. So again, I'm going to look at my opposite corners. And with this card, I'm really letting the paper speak for itself, and I'm just adding a couple of accents with the stamps. That's what the die cut flowers are going to be for. And so then on the back side of this piece, I'm just going to adhere that solid piece of designer series paper. And again, I'm going to look at my opposite corners, make sure everything is lined up. And we'll put that down. And then I'm going to repeat that same thing with this last layer. I know it seems like there's lots of steps to this card, but honestly, once you've made a couple of them, it's really an easy card to make. And it's one of those that gives a lot of wow. So your recipient is going to be thrilled to see it, and I think you'll impress anybody that they share the card with as well. I love to do fun folds. I love designer series paper, and so anytime I can combine those two things, I'm in my happy spot. Daisies also happen to be a very favorite flower of mine. I had them in my wedding bouquet, and I like being able to combine all of these colors and use them in this way. So it's kind of a good, oh, look at my light is now in the camera. All right. So then to attach these pieces, the temptation is to put tape here, but because we don't know how far over that's going to go, I recommend instead that you pull your cat hair off the tape runner and just grab your tape runner and put 2 strips down right here. I didn't get quite to the top, and so I'm just going to go back and add a little bit more. You don't want to get too close to the edge because, of course, your cardstock, well, in this case, it isn't going to matter because your cardstock layer here will cover everything. So what you want to do is just, I found it, if I had it, I'll try to describe it. If I lined it up, sometimes it's easier for me to do this upside down too, so that my edges were even with that flap. And then to make sure I had it over far enough that it's doing what it's supposed to, but not so far that it's going to prevent that fold, I just kind of do a practice fold. So it's just to the, almost to the score line. And that's how you attach it, and that's what it looks from the back side. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. So we'll repeat that same process. I'm going to add a couple rows of adhesive right here. I want to make sure I get some right at the top. There we go. And then again, for some reason, kind of being a little more upside down, or you can even open it like this if you want that flat surface. That works fine too. I'm going to kind of do my own tilty thing and have that flat surface. And so again, I'm lining this up so that I want this right to the edge of there. And then I want to make sure that it's also even with the top and the bottom. Okay. And once I've got that, then I can smoosh her down and make her stay. And so now we've got this pretty base card with these lovely daisies. And on the front of the card, I'm not going to do anything because I've got lots of daisies here. But when I flip it open, I want to have just a little bit of a decor focal paint right there. Point. I'm not going to use having problems with this tape runner. I need to do a deep clean of my case because there is a lot of tape gooped up in here, and I think it's getting caught on that. I'm not going to put this up on dimensionals because this is already going to be kind of a bulky card, but I do want to add just a little focal point on the inside of the card. And I'm going to repeat that same process with the larger daisy. I just noticed that where the ink hit the embossed areas, it's not fully dry. So just be aware of that if you choose to do something like that. It may still be a little damp and you should probably take a Kleenex or something and just blot it. This one isn't a problem because that center was done mostly inside of it. On this little one, I did have some of it hit the edges of the daisy. So that's just what was smearing. So just be aware of that. So now we've got our outside flaps done. Our inside flaps are decorated. We've got our hello on the back. And I've got these adhesive back solid gems. And these are basically Lemon Lolly, Boho Blue, and the Copper Clay. I want to call this Pecan Pie, and it's not. That's the other color. But it's the Copper Clay. And so I'm just going to decorate a little bit using these because these embellishments are also retiring. So as you can tell, I haven't used a lot of them. So we're going to go ahead and add. It's just the kitty meowing her head off in the background. We're going to add a couple of these just to give it a little bit of texture. Oh, I think she found one of her toys. That's why she's chirping in the background. And then again on this piece, I'm going to use some of the Copper Clay. Just to add a little bit of pop of color to the card. And you know, as I'm looking at that, that blue hardly shows up, does it? We're going to change our plans here. Fortunately, there's enough sticky left. That one, the sticky stuck here. That's all right. I can make that work. Like there's still some left on the back of it. Yep, so I'm changing my mind on those. I'm going to add a different color to the front here. So where I still had that adhesive, I'm going to add it here. Here. Oops. Stick it to my desktop instead. Uh-oh. Oh, there it is. It's stuck to the back. There we go. And so that just adds a little bit of pop to the front of the card. Again, we've got our daisy on the inside, our daisy on the inside, and then on the back we've got our hello, and we can write a note to whomever's going to receive this card. So this is called the, I wrote it down, Cascading Pleated card. And you can see why it's called that, because it cascades down. Now, you could have your card go horizontal, portrait. The trick to that is if you flip this around, if I have it like this, it's going to be freestanding. If I go like this, it's no longer freestanding. I have seen some cards that do go portrait and the pleats kind of go down like this, but the measurements that I had, it just got all wonky on me. So I figured instead of confusing you with those measurements tonight, I would get it to work and then I can share it as an update or do a quick video to show you how to do that one as well. So again, here are the 3 cards that I've made. They're kind of whimsy to more serious. I think this would be a fun little card for a little one to get with all those cute little zoo animals on there. But it might be fun to share with a friend who's got a special birthday or perhaps a milestone birthday. Remind them they're still young at heart. And then we've got this one. Thank you for your friendship. I just love these colors together. I find it very peaceful on that card. And then here's the one we made tonight with the Cheerful Daisies and the, I always want to call this Cheerful Daisies. It's the Fresh as a Daisy Designer Series paper. So I hope you enjoyed this and that I've inspired you to try this fold. If you do make one, please feel free to share it in the comments down below. I think that we can inspire each other with our creativity, and the best way we can do that is by sharing with one another. Take care, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll see you next week for Make It Monday.